Hello, and welcome to the Six Figure Developer Podcast, the podcast where we talk about new and exciting technologies, professional development, clean code, career advancement, and more. I'm John Calloway.
I'm Clayton Hunt.
And I'm John Nash.
With us today is Maxime Rouiller. Maxime is a Canadian cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. He's been in the tech industry since the 2000s, and he's always been working with .NET as far as he can remember. Welcome, Maxime.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for having me. Yeah, intros are not my thing.
Well, just before we get started in more of the meat of the episode, would you mind just kind of telling us a little bit about yourself, maybe sort of how you got started in the industry, what draw you in?
Oh, sure. So I was always like this kind of kid that was very good with computers. So that kind of like threw me off into the field right away to start with, and I've built from there. And over the years, as I learned more and more, I started getting really a knack for talking to people and writing stuff down and contributing more to the communities. That took me to become an MVP for 7 years. For those that don't know, the MVP stands for Microsoft Most Valuable Professionals, which is basically those people that contribute a lot to the communities and share a lot. And without knowing that, that award that was given to me got me started and got me prepared to do what I'm doing right now, which is basically developer advocacy. It's talking to people, it is contributing to the communities, and it's still showing a true love for the community and not trying to sell it. We're trying to empower the community. We're trying to make it better, and that is my job, and I'm being paid for it. This is great, man.
For those not familiar with the Cloud Developer Advocate Program, can you tell us a little bit about what that is, a little more about what that is, and what your role within Microsoft is?
So at the beginning of 2017, I'm not quite sure about exactly when, that was the beginning of our developer relationship programs, which is basically developer advocacy. We're trying to get more developers interested into Azure, and we're not trying to sell it. Our goal is to improve the platform. That's the difference, in my opinion, between an evangelist and a developer advocate. The evangelist will basically tell you what is amazing, what is awesome, and on the other end, for me at least, it's about asking the community, what are you longing for? What do you think is great, and where do you think we could improve? And to bring that feedback back to the teams that needs them. Because we're all aware that our customers, from a professional standpoint, that they will not file bugs, they will not complain, they will suffer in silence, and we don't want that happening. And the thing is, we are there on Twitter, we are there in blog posts, on Medium, on every platform we can possibly find, and our goal is to bring back those feedback, to the product team, so that we can improve Azure and make it actually the better cloud. And
you had mentioned something before we started recording. Is that part of the reorg, or is that the rebrand of the evangelism roles?
So yeah, so the thing is that we started off a little bit with focusing a lot on technologies, and that was that for me. It made sense that we started with technologies because this is where we were. But as we moved on forward, if you're thinking about it a lot, there's the importance here is the audience, and we have to give specific attention to specific audiences. And even though, for example, let's say that your cloud advocate's perspective and his vision is only from a Go perspective. This is very great if you're doing open source or if you're doing small companies. But if you're trying to get into like the Microsoft size business, those are maybe content you're not going to write for. You're not going to write for that specific audience, and we need to take care of all those audiences. And sometimes, for me at least, what I notice is that especially on my side, is I was not giving any attention to students. And that is a problem, because the students are going to be the ones that are going to be taking our jobs in the future. I mean, not in a bad way. I mean, the market's going to keep on evolving. The student are coming one way or another, and they have a special point in any companies, is that a student will not bring any revenue, right? I mean, how much student have a 30K budget per month for any cloud services? Well, if they have a credit card, you're lucky. If they don't have a credit card, well, that's pretty much the standard. So you're trying to provide content for their students, and they have basically a zero tolerance for high cost. So you can't give credits, but the thing is, at some point, you need to hook them up with the right technologies and things that will help them out and it will solve their problems. And you're trying to get this triple win where it's good for them, it's good for me, it's good for Microsoft. And if we can get that, any kind of good content that will be good for everyone, for me, this is great. This is utopia that I hope I can achieve.
So if you're a cloud advocate, and you've said that that's different than a evangelist, right? So you're not out there preaching that our technology is awesome and you should use it, but more of like that feedback engine, getting the feedback and seeing what we can do to improve. With students, I mean, they're students because they don't know something. So how are we getting the technology in front of them in the first place so that you can ask them for their feedback?
So one of the few good examples that we have, for example, is Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is 100% free and 100% open. I think it is 100% open source. Am I? Good question. But if it's not 100%, like there's a very high percentage of it that is open source. And right now, this is kind of like the free editors for the open source world. And those get a very good chance of getting in students' hand. For us, it's also about providing, for example, Visual Studio for students that we can do that. If you need Visual Studio, we have a lot of offerings to get free for students, but I'm not focused on Visual Studio. For me, it's going to be the cloud. And one of the thing I know is that we offer free services for Azure for students. One of them being we have a plethora of free services that comes with those. And among those are storage or Azure Functions. And those are the simpler technologies that you want to focus on. So for me, those are basically the keys to getting a job kind of technologies. I can hook you up with basically a data science machine and provide you with all the things that you require for doing research. But in the end, you will host your website somewhere. You will store it somewhere. So you need those base blocks to start working, and you need to understand them. And with the offering that we have right now, I'm not selling that at all. I mean, it's just that the things that we're using right now that you can work on without even creating an Azure account. We have storage containers that allows you to just create a container and have the sample that can run on any machine to test out your Azure storage. You can have Azure Function running locally on your machine without even having an Azure account, because the whole platform of Azure Functions is open source, from runtime to CLI to, I don't even know all the components, but I know they are open source. So open sourcing is definitely a way to go, because it gives more technologies in the end of people that want to use them. And the more people that have their eyes on it, the more problem we can find. And for me, what even matters most is, this getting started scenario where, like, everyone that's worked in an enterprise before will have worked through that already, but you're basing your learning from previous experiences. So if you're thinking about a learning graph where you already learn a whole bunch of stuff, and each stuff that you learn are basically just dots on the graph, and you're making links between them, when you're trying to learn a new technology, you're trying to draw parallels from the dots you already have. But a student doesn't have any of those dots. They're starting from, well, I know what Minecraft is, and I know what World of Warcraft is, if you're like an oldie like me. And I think now it's Fortnite. Fortnite is the latest, the latest ones. So they're starting from nothing. So it is even more important for us to get the 101 stuff right, even if it's just, even if it doesn't actually bring any revenue, because students are not going to bring revenue, right? And I'm very happy to be part of that team, because we're making amazing content, and we're going to be focusing on those scenarios where you're going to be starting something. And even though most people will say, well, I'm not a student anymore, so it doesn't impact me. But in the end, it will, because whatever 100 content we do that we need to get started with, you need to understand, things need to be simpler, it will impact everyone. So yeah, I really like that team.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, students are obviously also all that they're learning. They'll eventually not be students any longer, and they'll be able to take the skills that they've learned and begin to start applying them into careers that do have those budgets, and where that revenue can be kind of regained. What technologies and what cloud pieces have you really found students giving like significant feedback and really positive feedback and saying, hey, this is fantastic that this is now available to me, or this is sort of, I really connect with this and finding great use for these sort of things. What could you point to that says, yeah, this is one of the things that we're getting really great feedback from?
So the two main modules that I found that are focusing on students are going to be the basic blocks of the cloud. So you will have the standard storage. So on Azure, this is Azure Storage. On Amazon, it's S3. So those are going to be used left and right, because you want a website, you want to store something, it's going to be there. We're getting a whole bunch of feedback from anything that allows you to do compute, and at the most basic levels. So I know the hotness right now is serverless, but we get a good amount of stuff on app service, and we get a good amount of stuff on anything that is related to containers. Containers might be hard to start, but if you're going over all the process of what is a container, and you're just basically saying, this is your website, this is a recipe for a website, things get very easy, very fast, and you can pretty much use your application everywhere. And finally, the last part that I think we get a lot of feedback. And this is not direct feedback like a student saying this should be that way. It's more like, I've looked at a student trying to get this thing running, and that student is confused, at least totally confused, and we need to make this better. And that would be the everything that is data science VMs that we're having, and we provide some credits for that. And every time we try to see them going through this, we're like, okay, how can we make this experience better? Because we all know with data science, the things it's running on Python, it's running on different version of Python, it's requiring different libraries, and you want to make sure that the Lego blocks are stacked in the right way. Otherwise, things are breaking down left and right. So those VMs, the way that they're set up, the way that the version of the tools that we're using, all those are what we're looking for when somebody's using those VMs, and we have a good chance to work with them to make sure that things work correctly when they try it out.
Yeah, and I would imagine that getting that simple and easy enough for a student to understand would be a great thing for even folks like myself. I would say that this is probably one of the more difficult things to even comprehend and understand and get into, for sure. So anytime we can sort of lower that bar and put the cookies on the lowest shelf, so to speak, is a great opportunity and a great win. That's really cool.
That's one of the things I love is as soon as I can start talking about containers, and that we can stop telling the people like, oh, you need to install that dependency and that dependency in that order in a specific way, because containers allows you to just have all of this pre-installed, the only thing you need to do is do a Docker pull on the container. You basically have everything that you need to start running. You don't even need to ask those questions.
Yep.
Like from the non-Microsoft world, the MVP, which is the most minimum viable product, in that scenario, in the case of a demo, in case of starting something, what is the MVP? And the thing is, a container can oftentimes be your first MVP. What is the simplest way with a few amount of steps? Can you have somebody hit the ground running without understanding everything that is around it? And you can start having fun, and you can start playing with the code and not worry about the whole environment. That is always something that we're concerned about.
You've been traveling around the world quite a bit here recently. Is there is all of that interaction with students around the world, or?
So no. I've been enrolled in the Microsoft Ignite tour, not by force. I was willing there. The thing is that this is a tour that allows us to interact with the whole communities in general. I would love to get more students, of course, but the thing is that there's only so many students who can fit through the invites and everything else. But I'm interacting with other people as well. So I've been collaborating with the MVPs on those stops. So far, I've done Milan. I was supposed to do Washington, D.C., but the Canadian weather did not agree with the flight plan. So I also did. I just came back from Dubai, and I will do Mexico City on the I think it's the second week of April. And during all those times, my discussions are always focused around their experience with us, their experience with our tools. Okay. And at my latest stops in Dubai, we happen to have somebody called Timu that is now an MVP, and it just happened to be what we call an MSP. So this is a Microsoft Student Partners. Those are partners, are students that we find in universities and grad school and stuff like that are just great at communicating, and they want to share. They want to learn that skill. Think of them as community builders, things that would be great assets to MVPs in the futures. And this guy basically went on about the MSP program and how he learned so much, and that allowed him to become an MVP. And that made me think that I don't know if we have any like bridge like that between the MSPs and the MVPs, but if we don't, we should start looking into this, because I very love students, and I think that they have great opportunities to become new influencers of tomorrow. It doesn't have to be with us, but I love great influencers, and I love to deal with people. And if I can help just one student become a better communicator and build communities, even if it doesn't bring me $1, I don't care. This is good. This is a good cause, and the student's going to love it.
Now, is the Microsoft Student Partner Program, is that a new program, or what exactly is that?
I am not 100% exact on the full definition of the program, but this is basically a reconnaissance program for students that allows us to connect with them, and allows us to give them credits for Azure so that we can track a little bit like what they're using it for. But basically, if you're looking for cloud resources and you're not an MSP, I think that could help. But you just have to remember that this is going to be focused on communities. This is something we're going to be focusing on. It's not about getting the free credits, because those you can get from your university program. Mm-hmm. But it is a different program that allows us to help students basically work on different skill sets. So when you're at school, mm-hmm. you're going to be working on learning the basic stuff from what is computing. So whether it is IT stuff, what is machine learning, whether it is programming, you're going to be working on those skill sets. How do we make you work on those soft skills? How do we make you present in front of people? I remember that in high school, I was basically frozen in front of an audience of 20 of my peers, 20 other students that were in my class, I would not be able to talk. It was like I was frozen there. So how do we unlock those people? How do we make them passionate about what they do? How do we spark that passion that will make them fall in love with computing, just like I did when I started working to become an MVP?
And you had earlier, I think you had mentioned to us the MSP Summit. Is that sort of an event that's designed to help bring them together and ignite some of that?
So we have different MSP summits depending on the areas, but I know for the one I was talking about was the one in the Americas. So we're going to be bringing a whole bunch of different MSPs from pretty much Canada, I think, and United States, and I'm not sure if there's Mexico. And we're all going to bring them to Seattle at the beginning of May. The goal is to have interaction with them and help them put in touch with all of our community leaders and give them some training about how would you go around and start a community. Mm-hmm. How would you interact with people? How do you do? What is a good presentation? What is good code?
Wow.
And personally, I would love to take that step even further. I would love to personally contribute with MSPs. I would love to give them some real world example or projects for which they could work on. Oftentimes, I feel like there's a lot of companies that see students as possible future clients. For me, I see them as kids or not kids looking for work, like anyone that's just looking to move out of mom's basement. They're just getting the bill paid, because once school is over, once you put your big boy shoes, and that you don't have like you don't have all this school stuff supporting you. Once you're thrown out of this, how are you going to get a job? And it's not just by saying, well, I accomplished everything with a good GPA that's going to lend you a job, because guess what? There's going to be 5, 10, 100 more students going to be having the same background than you, and they're all trying to get a job. Mm-hmm. How can I take those students and push them to the next level? Mm-hmm. How can I take what they've learned from both from school and MSPs and help them land their next job and get that triple win I was talking about earlier? How can I make this a great example of how can I make their experience work for them a little bit, instead of just saying, oh yeah, I worked on that project, but it was done. I mean, don't undersell yourself. How can I help you modify, maybe, I don't know, your resume or your LinkedIn profile, or how can I help you basically get a job and take your resume and push it over everyone else's, so that you're not just hanging there. And I don't think that would require a lot of work. It's just about the willingness to do it, the willingness to help. And I think that's what basically for me advocacy is about. It's about fighting for my users.
Yeah. There's definitely a need for more technologists, and particularly students looking to move into technology. There's all kinds of opportunities. You know, we run a meetup, a .NET user group in Tampa, St. Pete area in Florida, and we see new young folks. We see new career change folks come and attend our meetups. We work pretty closely with a coding school in town, and we see lots of excitement around the possibilities of the new and upcoming technologies.
There's new technologies coming out every day, and it's hard to keep track. And yeah, so whatever I can do to make Azure a little bit easier to learn for everyone, it's going to be great. I know that build is going to be coming in about a month, and that means there's going to be a ton of announcement on every product. Maybe not every product, but on a lot of products. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to have new versions, new features, new previews, new whole bunch of stuff. And I know that day workers that are just working with technology every day are going to have to get used to that and going to have to learn the new stack. And for me, it will be about going back to the one-on-one. How do that impact somebody that's just starting? How does that impact like the people that just want to learn what the cloud is? Because a lot of discussion I've had is like, oh, the cloud. So this is like OneDrive, right? It's like, sure, if you only want to store files, but
okay. So one of the things we sort of talk with everyone who comes on the program is we give them an opportunity to sort of give advice out. And one of the groups that we target is usually the people that are just trying to get started. And so I think it would be really cool for you to speak a little bit to that. But I think even more so, I mean, those are the people that you're really focused on and reaching out. Maybe it might be also good to give some advice to some of the individuals that are maybe more experienced and have been around the block and are, encountering in their work, the, students or people that are just trying to get into. And how do you, what's the student, what are the needs that you're seeing, and how do people that have experience reach out to those students or pull them along? Does that make sense?
A little bit. I'll talk, and if I'm going the wrong way, just interrupt me and steer me back.
Okay.
So, for students, I know there's, in terms of students and current technologies, I know there's a lack of mentorship going on that we could use some good mentorship. I think that MVPs could mentor MSPs, especially because they are technically working the same ground. They're working the same thing. They're doing technology interaction. They're trying to learn. They're trying to push the bar a little further. And one is just starting, and the other ones is I already have a few years, at least, of professional development on them. So that is one way I think that could improve the students. In terms of technology, if you're a student, or not even like right now a student, you're just trying to get started with the cloud, and you don't even have a credit card, and mom does not agree to share the credit card. There's things like or Learn platform that allows you to just basically just start learning right away without like subscribing to video recording companies and stuff like that. You can start with zero credit card and just learn on your own. That is always great. But I would love to see at some point a mentorship program going on for students as a way to get them to where a lot of great speakers and great bloggers are right now. In terms of advice for the more experienced people, I would give one of the following that's never that kept things right on me. It is never underestimate the power of networking and relationships, because you don't know who you're going to meet that's going to make an impact on your life. And there's ton of I was an MVP for 7 years, right? So I know John from the MVP program, and I know a whole bunch of them from the MVP program, and I partially got my job because of MVPs that were just basically say, hey, have you taught a Max for that job? That would have been great. So, and just keep on pushing for what you love, because the position I am in right now did not exist 5 years ago. So I'm guessing there's going to be a whole lot of different positions that do not exist today. But whatever you're doing right now, just don't stay in the same 9-to-5 loop of just doing the same thing without learning, without moving. How do you grow? And I hope I've been growing for the past few years, because I'm not done. I just keep on pushing, and I'm trying to right now to learn machine learning, which is a whole different ball game. And yeah, so that's one of the things that networking, power of communication, stuff like that. This is soft skills that I think a lot of people could view in a new light. This is how do you take your game from like excellent to incredible. And yeah,
very good. That sounds like some excellent advice. I really appreciate it. Do you have any other resources that you might point people to who maybe are trying to get started with the cloud? Like I know the Azure Global Bootcamp is going in April or in my area. I don't know if there's other programs like that.
If you have a chance to go to the Azure Bootcamp, that is definitely one way to go. Due to the same reasons. First, you're going to be learning the basics. Second, there's going to be a ton of people there, networking, relationships. We're back to that again. So this is definitely something that if you can make it, just do it. If you have a chance to look for opportunities and stuff like that, you can try to interact with a few MVPs to try to learn. Because I know there's a whole bunch of them that are just been working on that blog post that has been in draft for like 6 weeks. So you just want to write that you just can't complete, and just sometimes just reaching out is a good way to both finish that blog post and learn something new.
Excellent. And then how about if people just want to like follow you or contact you? Is there a social media plug that you could give that will point them in the right direction?
Always. So my name on Twitter, so Maxime Rouiller, we'll provide a link in the show notes, right? Yeah. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to add me over there, that's fine as well. I do not accept people on Facebook because, well, I post pictures of my kids, so yeah. Let's keep that personal. But otherwise, I'm on GitHub. If you follow me on GitHub, you will see that I contribute a lot of samples. Right now, I'm at 2, and I provide others that I'm working on that are still in experimental mode, that things I want to work on. I have a lot of ideas for samples, but lack of times and conferences and stuff like that eats your time.
Speaking of conferences, do you have any other upcoming speaking engagements you might want to publish or shout out?
So for now, I will be at the Ignite Tour in Mexico City. So if you have listeners in Mexico City, please say hi. That would be that would be awesome. I don't have anything else planned for now. I will be at the pre-build event before, but I don't have any other fixed stuff, because my goal is not to book myself at all the conferences. My goal is to focus on students, and I haven't heard of like 6,000 person big events for students happening, mostly due to the fact that we limited travel budget. So
sure, fair enough.
So yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Maxime. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man.
That was Maxime Rouiller. Maxime is a Canadian cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. He's been in the tech industry since the 2000s, and he's always been working with .NET for as long as he can remember.
If you like this episode, please like, rate, and review on iTunes.
Find show notes, blog posts, and more at sixfiguredev.com.
And be sure to follow us on Twitter at sixfiguredev.
This has been another episode of the Six Figure Developer Podcast, helping others reach their potential. I am John Calloway.
I'm Clayton Hunt.
And I'm John Ash.